Overnight, the Pentagon has ordered a review into the AUKUS submarine pact. Richard Marles says there's nothing to worry about. This is just the natural order of things. Former Australian ambassador to the US, Joe Hockey, joins me now. How worried should we be, Joe?
Well, I don't think we should be overly worried, but we should be involved in contributing to that review. And during the discussions in the next week, Laura, between the Prime Minister and the President of the United States, it's important that the Prime Minister emphasise in relation to AUKUS that we're not just writing a cheque, but we're actually directly in the supply chain for the enhancement of the US Navy. One of Australia's companies, a listed company in Australia, Austal, is in fact has a $12 billion order book in Alabama and is helping to build the Virginia-class submarines, which the US really needs and wants, and probably has been one of the reasons why they're having this review.
Yeah, they wanted to fit into the America First policy set by Trump and made as one of his priorities for this term. But, I mean, a review is one thing, but getting Eldridge to do it is a whole other thing, because he's not a big fan of AUKUS. Do you read it like that?
Well, yes. The question is how much the rest of the Department of Defence knew about this review, and that's an open question. There's no doubt that the Secretary of the United States Navy, Secretary Phelan, is very supportive of AUKUS. I believe Secretary Hegseth, Department of Defence Secretary, is the same. I know Donald Trump supports AUKUS. And there's no doubt about Congress and the Senate. I was there just a few weeks ago, met with a number of key senators, Democrats and Republicans, including Senator Wicker, and they're emphatically supporting AUKUS. But you have to pay your way, and Australia is paying its way. The United Kingdom just announced a massive increase in their defence expenditure, including very real commitments to new technology. Australia is lagging behind and needs to get on with the job of building the submarine base in Perth at Henderson. We need to get on with the job of preparing for the arrival of the Virginia-class subs in the early 2030s, and we're not there yet.
Could this be leverage as well? As you say, Hegseth raised with Marles directly the level of defence spending, 3.5% of GDP. Do we need to get there to ensure AUKUS remains?
Well, I'm in part with Prime Minister Albanese on this, that, just plucking a number out of the air is not necessarily the answer. But what is the answer is to have the right technologies to be a contributor and to make sure we build our industrial base. This is something I'm going to say a bit more about next week in Canberra. We have no industrial base of substance at the moment. We have one potential military prime, Austal, which is subject to a hostile takeover from Hanwha, a Korean company. And it's in the hands of the Australian government about whether we let our last remaining shipbuilder and the third biggest naval shipbuilder in the United States go into foreign hands. And that is a very big challenge for the Albanese government that people aren't paying attention to, because we expect Austal in Western Australia to build the $10 billion of frigates, which are now subject to decision by the government. But also, we've learnt from Ukraine, if you don't make your own weapons, if you don't build your own military, then you can't necessarily rely on foreigners to pick up the tabs when you really need it. We have witnessed in the last few weeks Ukraine and Israel using their own domestic technology to protect their people. And the question is, do we have that in Australia, or are we going to continue to be almost entirely reliant on foreigners providing us with the technology when we need it?
Well, isn't the answer absolutely we don't have that in Australia and we really need to catch up? How big's the gap in your assessment?
Well, the gap is substantial. And the reason why the gap is substantial is because, and look, I was guilty of it as a member of a previous government. We thought we could always rely on the supply chains out of the US and out of Europe. But I think what we've learned from Ukraine and what we've learned at other times and in recent times, is you can't have 100% or even 70 or 60% reliance on foreign suppliers. They will always put themselves first. And if we need a reminder of it, it's come overnight from the United States. We can't solely rely on them for the supply of our military equipment and our technology. We partner with them, we need them as a partner, but we have to have our own industrial base. And at the moment, that is under significant threat.
So what's happened here over the years then, Joe? Have we become more reliant, more complacent on the United States? Or with President Trump 1.0, now 2.0, has he become a less reliable partner for us?
I don't think operationally the US is any less reliable. I mean, there is a deep affection and support for Australia right across the board, bipartisan, and I can say it with knowledge. Laura, I'm not gilding the lily here, but you can't take it for granted. You've got to show them what we're doing. And, you know, for example, in the case of Austal, it's an Australian company in Mobile, Alabama, that is building the control towers, command and control towers for the Virginia-class and Columbus-class submarines. So we're in there. We're actually in there building the submarines that help to protect America, and we're using Australian skills, and they want to bring more skills from the US to Australia. Now, other companies like BAE and Babcock or a range of, you know, Boeing, they're all partnering with Australia, but we need to invest more in our own innovation. And there are a whole lot of smaller Australian companies that are amongst the very best in the world that we're not really giving substantial support to and opportunity, giving them enough opportunity to grow into the US and European markets.
So if Albanese gets a FaceTime with Trump, which he likely will, what's the message? What does he needs to bring his A game, of course. He needs to convince Trump on a number of issues. If you agree with Albanese that there shouldn't be some arbitrary figure, for example, 3.5% of GDP on defence spending, there needs to be at least evidence of a pipeline of massive amounts of spending on the very thing that you seem to be talking about this morning. Are they, you know, is that how he should go into this conversation?
Yeah, I think you need to be armed up with all the ammunition. On tariffs, you know, I think we can move on beef. There's room and opportunity there without compromise.
In what sense? Not compromising biosecurity, you know, of course.
Yeah, the biosecurity, really, it comes down to our concern about contaminated beef going into the US out of Canada and out of Mexico and ending up coming to Australia. I mean, look, the fact is, if the Americans can assure us that we have, that they have traceability in relation to their beef, then there's no reason why American beef can't come into Australia. And let's be honest, it's more expensive and it's fattier than ours, so it's really no threat to our beef producers. But on long-standing irritants like new coal, where the shareholders have been left high and dry, and American mums and dads have been left high and dry, and Australians, by the way. That's under Trump 1.0, under Biden, and now under Trump 2.0. They've said they've got to provide compensation. So the Albanese government needs to deal with it. It can't just kick it down the road. These are the things that are annoying the Americans, and at the same time, we want to do more with America. So Donald Trump is transactional. Yeah. Donald Trump, you know, he's overt about it. Every political leader I've ever been involved with is transactional. Donald Trump is simply more transparent about being transactional.
Yeah, nakedly so, I would say, Joe. But what you're saying as well, and the Albanese government has tried to argue, oh no, the tariff issue's got to be absolutely separate to AUKUS and defence in its entirety. But that's not how Donald Trump operates. No. Is that what you're saying? Look, it can't be siloed.
Yeah, that's right. And Donald Trump has just announced that he's going to be sending letters to trading partners telling them what the new tariff arrangements are in the US in the next 2 weeks. So we want to be in there. You can't, I mean, we can't pretend he isn't the president of the United States. And you know what? We can't pretend that the Republicans don't hold the Congress at the moment. Yeah, exactly. So the reality is they are our second biggest trading partner. They're by far the biggest investor in Australia, and we need investment. But also, they are our unbelievably the most significantly close partner in intelligence and in defence. And, you know, we have no alternative but to engage at a detailed level. And that needs to happen between Prime Minister Albanese and President Trump directly. And, you know, that flows through. So if Donald Trump's out there saying Australia is a great country and a great ally and a great friend, then way down the pipeline in the Department of Defence, no one would be initiating a unsolicited review into AUKUS. And that's right. How this administration operates from the top down.
Just one final question, Joe, because in your book you wrote about the time that Barack Obama asked you essentially to stop selling iron ore to China. Now we have Donald Trump back in the White House. Isn't there a real risk that he turns around and tells Australia that we have to choose between our biggest trading partner and our biggest ally?
Well, I don't think that will be the case. I think it was in the case of President Obama, and even at that time, you know, Prime Minister Abe in Japan, they felt that it was easy. But, you know, our response at that time was, well, you wouldn't ask Saudi Arabia to stop selling oil to China. And what are you going to do? Are you going to buy our iron ore? Are you going to buy all these things that they buy off us? So it's not realistic. Donald Trump is very commercial. And if you say, Mr. President, would you stop selling American goods to China? You don't want to do that. You want to sell more American goods to China. And he'd agree with you emphatically and say, well, we're the same. We want to sell more goods to other countries so that we can be richer. And the good news for the United States is they have a rare trade surplus with Australia. So you win in the trade environment at the moment. But we want to continue to engage with you. We want to continue to have those deep ties born out of a lot of history. And Donald Trump knows this. It's just he is transactional. He wants to be able to say he got a good deal, but he doesn't want to say that it's America only. He wants to be a good partner.
Joe Hockey, always great to talk to you. Thanks so much for giving us your time this morning. Appreciate it.